Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden.
Where we continue to follow the capture and killing of Osama bin Laden now.
Those are just some of the scenes overnight as thousands of Americans gathered in celebration of Osama bin Laden's death.
Former Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill says he has thought about the mission every day since that May Day in 2011.
For multiple conversations you had with Rob O'Neill over the past year and a half, how'd you get
access? And you described that his head kind of exploded when you hit him.
I actually hit him 3 times because I shot him twice when he was standing and once on the ground.
That is the fucking American badass.
We are not going for fame and we are not going for bravado. We are going for the single mom who dropped her kids off at elementary school on a Tuesday morning, and then 45 minutes later she jumped to her death out of a skyscraper.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
I'm Rob O'Neill, and this is the Operator Podcast. Well, it's good to be back at the Operator Podcast. One-on-one again, no guest this week. We had a great guest last week, Trevor Colt, Military Cross recipient. If you haven't checked that out yet, please do, and I'll get more ways to get to that this week as I've been on the road doing all kinds of stuff, traveling around doing, I would like to say various administrative things, but that is not necessarily the case. I went up to South Bend, Indiana the day after they lost, I think, to Northern Iowa, so not exactly jovial, but there was a golf event for McTeams. If you don't follow McTeams on Instagram, you should. He's the only Navy SEAL who was allowed to come back as an instructor and photographer and document what went on there. He documented it in a book called Uncommon Grit, and that's his foundation. Wonderful man. I've known him for my entire Navy career. I went through buds with him and all that stuff. I need to get him on here too so you can meet him better, but he hosts events. He raises money for different charities that kind of spread out and help whatever charities they think they need, which is pretty cool. It's not a one-size-fits-all type thing. So flew to South Bend. McBee and I always have, it's either McTeams or McBee, and I call him McBee. But we had a great time. We always do. Got to hang out with some wonderful people. Chris Porter was there, who is, without question, one of the best stand-up comedians in the world. I've never seen a delivery as good as his, and the way he brings you into a joke and smacks you with the delivery is awesome. I was able to say a few words, but to hang out with these guys there. Mike Durant was there. He was obviously one of the pilots who got shot down in Mogadishu. Some of the Rangers were there from Black Hawk Down, and that's just a cool event too. So able to hang out with them, say some few words at a nice gala in the suite at the stadium. And then the next day, a golf event, which is always fun. It's always a good time because no matter what you're doing, generally people are behaving, but this is on Notre Dame, so this is a campus of the Lord, so we were extremely well behaved, and we had a really good time. And then, what else? I went down to Texas, which is a blast. I went to see Drinking Bros, my Drinking Bros. We were going to do, we went over to the Blaze. I'm a big fan of the Blaze. I love going to the Blaze. We went to Sarah Gonzalez's show, which is fun. It was me and Dan and Ross, and we got to sit down there with Sarah, and I think we got a full hour out of it, and it was really, really fun. It was a fun one, too, because you're at the point, I think, personally, when you're dealing with politics or things like that, people have a tendency to get really angry right now, and that's kind of it's an easy crew to get a little angry with, but I think we had some fun with it, trying to, we mostly agree on the truth, so it's not that hard to talk to people like that, too, but we had... a lot of fun there. That I love the Blaze campus, and I'm a huge fan of the shows there too. I was even able to start a little controversy because I said the one thing that kept us asleep at night is what if that wasn't Bin Laden that we got, and that's just one of those things you say once in a while, but it's tongue in cheek, baby. Everyone's got to learn how to take a joke. We still need to release the pictures. I'm not going to lie about that. And we got them. We got a lot of pictures. But I also was able... I took my brother, the real Tommy O, down there. And Tommy O's been on this show a number of times, maybe 3 times. He's always fun to talk to, professional DJ up in Butte, Montana. He came with me because Tommy's just a fan of things. Tommy likes to do stuff. and it's awesome. And so Creed was playing, and obviously I thought Tommy should come down and check out Creed. And we saw Creed, and Three Doors Down opened for them. Yeah, I mentioned some old school bands, and I wasn't sure what to think when we were going down, because it's September 11th, and I don't know if they were going to be playing a smaller venue, man, but they rocked it. Both bands. They just sounded amazing. They crushed it. They were playing their classics, and I don't know how many thousands of people were there, but the light show was awesome. Everybody seemed to have a really good time with that, and it was just cool to travel the world a little bit. Go down to it's always fun to go to Texas because nothing bad ever happens there. Then I went out left to North Carolina. I went to an ECU football game with some friends, and I'm just an ECU football fan. Go Pirates. It's always a blast out there. Hang out with ECU Barstool, and then obviously hit Sup Dogs for like every meal. Best hot dogs in the world and the best damn service. And gentlemen, go over there and enjoy it. I mean, slaw dog, and then they sneak in the chili. Come on. Reading my diary, baby. But a big week there, and then flying back up here to try to get reorganized with whatever in the hell it is I do in life right now. So we're going to obviously talk about a few new items, which shouldn't take forever, but we can get going right after I talk about the sponsor of the show. So it is that time of year again, at least for me, when I start to travel a lot. A lot of airports, a lot of carry-ons, airport bathrooms, things like that. And I like to keep my package tight when I'm traveling in the carry-ons. So I need to bring up my sponsor, Mando. If you want to simplify travel, you can use Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. Get a load of this. It's a 5-ounce bar that does the work of shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant. You can also create a rich shaving lather, so technically it's a 5-in-1. It's clinically proven to control odor for over 24 hours. Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is formulated with a gentle alpha hydroxy acid that stops odor at the source. Regular soap can't do that because the pH is too high. Look, I don't know what alpha hydroxy or pH means. I just know the shit works. A doctor invented it, and it smells fantastic. This simplifies your hygiene routine, and it's the only thing you really need to pack, which makes it great for traveling. And I travel a lot. Like I said, 19 days in a carry-on. This saves me so much room so I can fit in, my if you're going to a black tie event or I need to throw in my Viking helmet, I got plenty of room because I'm saving space with Mando. You can get this in 3 cologne quality scents. Mount Fuji is fresh and woodsy. Bourbon Leather is sweet and sophisticated. Pro Sport is clean and citrusy. But Mount Fuji is my good to go. Yeah, and my go-to Mount Fuji immediately caught my wife's nose. She caught her attention, and she told me I'm basically not allowed to wear anything else around her. She loves the new stuff. And now that I've used Mando, I'm basically not going to use anything else ever again. It's the scent of confidence, and I don't need to embellish the benefits. The whole body deodorant Mando is seriously safe to use anywhere on your body, and I mean anywhere. Pits, packages, grundles, balls, belly buttons, butt cracks, whatever you got on your stanky ass. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando is American-made. Mando whole body deodorant is powerful enough for the toughest body odors, but gentle enough to use, like I said, everywhere. Get a load of this. It's aluminum-free, baking soda-free, cruelty-free, dye-free, vegan. Clinically proven to control odor better than a shower and soap alone. There's a study that says 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor was 5 out of 10. With Mando, however, your grundle will be 0 out of 10. That's not a bad gig. And the starting pack here is a good way to go. It's perfect for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream, tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice. I go with the mini body wash and the deodorant wipes, but that's just me. Also free shipping. So I have a discount code to help you get hooked up with my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack that I just explained with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code THEOPERATOR at shopmando.com. So that's shopmando.com, shopmando.com, code THEOPERATOR. Save 40% there. Shopmando.com, code THEOPERATOR. Let's get back into some stuff that's happening around the world, which is pretty exciting, if that's the word you want to use. Mossad, the Israelis, targeted Hezbollah, which is not Hamas, but they both don't like Israel. They're up to the north. They are a Shia group, and they're really funded by Iran. Iran funds everybody over there, but Hezbollah's their little baby, little stinky babies. But I guess they bought a bunch of pagers because I'm thinking OPSEC. That's the only reason. Because these guys aren't idiots. What they're trying to do with that is they're buying pagers instead of cell phones because they're starting to figure out they might be tracked by their cell phones, by their iPhones, because everyone's got a tracking device in their iPhones. Maybe that's it. So they figured they would use pagers, which is whatever, thinking outside the box. You gotta call someone from a phone for another page or whatever. But anyway, I guess the word I'm getting is that Mossad intercepted this huge shipment of pagers, and they took out some of the battery parts and they put in some Petten parts. Petten is a high explosive that at Petten we actually use for det cord. To a det cord roll that'll get the C4 going. It's pretty impressive, and it's got a relative effectiveness factor in explosives, an RE factor. You compare it to TNT. So TNT is the one you see that, like when Bugs Bunny was pushing down the plunger and blowing up the mine or whatever. That's TNT, and if you're faster or whatever, you get a higher rate, a higher RE factor. So Petten, I think, has the highest at 1.66, so 1.66 stronger than TNT or faster than TNT. And this det cord burns at 21,000 feet per second, approximately, which means it goes fast. And that's like the det cord you tie to the bomb, and that's what sets the bomb off. But I guess Mossad put some of these in the Hezbollah pagers, and they detonated them all at once. So you got a couple guys killed. I'm not sure. The word I got was 13 right now. Lots of dudes in critical condition. These are all Hezbollah fucks. I never would have thought of that. And this brings up a lot more thoughts, I guess, because if they can intercept your pagers, but our iPhones are coming from China, something to think about, I guess. If we're all into EVs, electric vehicles, where do the batteries come from again? It's kind of scary. They can just start blowing stuff up when they want to. It's almost like they're keeping track of you, so they can blow you up. But and then also, what do you think? What do you think? Just give me your thoughts on these aren't, because I know with us, and according to several conventions, we were no longer allowed to use landmines. Other people did. Other people still do. IEDs are landmines. House-borne IEDs are big landmines. But we stopped using even stay-behind devices because it would maim someone. It might not kill them. It would maim them. So a lot of these Hezbollah dudes who are now, they're terrorists. They're not in an army. So I'm just curious to think what you think. Of just, some dude's holding his hand and all of a sudden blasts his digits off, or he's got it on his hip and then loses the newt sack. I mean, it's pretty good. It's definitely good psychological war. Wondering what they're going to do. If you can stop them from communicating that way, that might be a good way to beat these guys. Who knows? I'm just asking your question. I'm not saying that I would or would not employ a tactic like this, but that's what it is. But that's interesting. That's what's going on. We got that happening. We got other stuff happening. There was, I don't know if you noticed, but there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life again. So I would like to read something to you first and get your input on that, and then we'll discuss. But while I was down at ECU to watch the Pirates play Appalachian State, J.D. Vance was also down there as well. I didn't get to meet him. He was around, though. But he wrote an op-ed that was actually on theblaze.com talking about the second assassination attempt on the president. I would like to read it to you in case you missed it. So this is by J.D. Vance on September 17th. It's called Another Trump Assassination Plot. The media's double standard strikes again. This is J.D. Vance again. How do you think Democrats and their media allies would respond if a 19-time Republican donor tried to kill the Democratic Party's candidate for president? The question answers itself. Donald J. Trump nearly lost his life on Sunday again. An armed gunman waited for him in the bushes. He brought a GoPro camera to record it. A Secret Service agent spotted the barrel of a gun through a fence and fired at the gunman. The gunman fled. He was caught. And now we slowly learn the more about him and his motive. President Trump is my running mate. Again, this is J.D. Vance writing this. President Trump is my running mate and my friend, but more importantly, he is a father, a grandfather to people who love him very much. I want him to have many more years with his family, and selfishly, I'd like many more of my own. I admire President Trump for calling for calm and peace. The rhetoric is out of control. It nearly got Representative Stephen Scalise killed and other members of the House caucus killed on a Northern Virginia baseball field a few years ago. It nearly got Donald Trump killed twice. But I want to say something about Sunday's news and how it illuminates the difference between vigorous debate and violent rhetoric. Here's what we know so far. Kamala Harris has said that democracy is on the line in her race against President Trump. The gunman agreed and used the exact same phrase. He hid a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on his truck. He was obsessed with Ukraine and their fight for democracy and absorbed many unhinged views about the Russia-Ukraine war. His name is Ryan Ruth, and he donated 19 times to the Democratic Party and 0 times to the Republican ones. How do you think the Democrats and their media allies would respond if a 19-time Republican donor tried to kill the Democratic Party's candidate for president? The question answers itself. For years, Kamala Harris' campaign surrogates have said things like, Trump has to be eliminated. And how have the media allies responded to the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump in many months? NBC News calls the attempted assassination a golf club incident. The Los Angeles Times told us Trump targeted at golf club. USA Today's top of the fold headline on Monday was Hope in America. And the paper published a preposterous letter to the editor arguing that Trump, quote, brings these assassination attempts on himself, end quote. CNN's Dana Bash, ever heard of her? Who bizarrely accused me of indicting a bomb threat. Again, this is J.D. Vance writing this. And Monday, that the Harris campaign rhetoric didn't motivate Ruth, even though he echoed the rhetoric explicitly. The weekend news shows on PBS perfectly illustrated the double standard of Kamala Harris's media friends. After spending 30 seconds on the second attempt on President Trump's life, the show then focused on the real danger, Trump and me being J.D. Vance. According to the talking heads at PBS, we are personally responsible for bomb threats against residents of Springfield, Ohio. Never mind that I repeatedly condemned those threats. And subsequent reports suggest that they come from a foreign country, not a deranged Trump fan in the middle, as the media has suggested. The double standard is breathtaking. Donald Trump and I are, by their account, directly responsible for bomb threats from foreign countries. Why? Because we had the audacity to repeat what residents told us about the problems in their town. Meanwhile, Harris allies call for Trump to be eliminated as the media pushes arguments that he deserved to be shot. While this seems to be a double standard at a deeper level, it's entirely consistent. Consider Springfield. Citizens are telling us there are problems. These include the undeniable truths of more car accidents, unaffordable housing, evictions of residents, overcrowded hospitals, overstressed schools, and the rising rates of disease. They also include the infamous pet stories, which, again, multiple people have spoken about, either on video or to my staff. This is J.D. Vance's staff. Kamala Harris's first strategy was to ignore these people and their concerns. Yes, she had prevented the deportation of millions of illegal aliens, and some of them made their way to Springfield, a small town with no voice. Some of the local leadership even loved having the cheap labor. So the suffering of thousands of Americans went ignored. Her campaign's next move has been to push censorship. In Springfield, a psychopath or a foreign government called in a bomb threat, so naturally they blame President Trump and me, J.D. Vance. The threat of violence is disgraceful, of course, yet media seem to love to relish in it. They cover a bomb threat, but not the rise in murders. They cover the threat, but not the increase in HIV cases. They cover the threat, but not the schools overwhelmed with new kids who don't speak English. They cover the threat, but not rising insurance rates or car accidents that cause them. They cover the threat, not the failures of Kamala Harris's leadership. The purpose is not to turn down the rhetoric. If anything, covering the bomb threats gives whoever makes them exactly what they want, attention. The purpose is distraction and shame. How dare you talk about the problems associated with Haitian migration in Springfield? You're endangering people simply by discussing the consequences of Kamala Harris's policies. It's a form of moral blackmail designed not to make anyone safe, but to shut everyone up, and that's what they're doing. Springfield is the most recent, but hardly the most egregious example. There was the Hunter Biden laptop story, censored by big tech, and who could forget that anyone who didn't support Kamala Harris's Ukraine policy was drenched in the blood of Ukrainian children. The last one appears to have some effect on Ruth, Trump's most recent would-be assassin. The message is always the same. Don't dare express an opinion about the public affairs of your nation. Just shut up. This is the difference between the debate, even aggressive debate, and censorship. It is one thing to attack Kamala Harris for destroying the country and quite another to say that Donald Trump should be eliminated. It's one thing to criticize overheated rhetoric and another to say a former president has invited an assassination on himself. It's one thing to say that Trump's arguments about the election of 2020 are wrong. It's another thing to remove him from the ballot over it. It's one thing to argue that pets are not, in fact, being eaten. It's another thing to say that anyone who disagrees is trying to murder people. Dissent, even vigorous dissent, is a great tradition of the United States, but censorship is not. For the next 7 weeks of this campaign, I will vigorously defend your right to speak your mind. This is J.D. Vance. I believe you have every right to criticize me and Donald J. Trump, even if you say terrible and untrue things about us. But when I ask you to tone down the rhetoric, it isn't about being nice. Americans have every right to be mean, even if they don't like it, or empty platitudes. Instead, I'm asking all of us to reject censorship. Reject the idea that you can control what other people think and say. Embrace persuasion of your fellow citizens over silencing them. Either through the power of big tech or through moral blackmail, I think this will make our public debate much better. But there is something else. When you reject censorship, you reject political violence. Embrace censorship, and you will inevitably embrace violence on its behalf. The reason is simple. The logic of censorship leads directly to one place. For there is only one sure way to silence a human being permanently: put a bullet in his brain. That is from J.D. Vance. So, I mean, that's where it's at. If you look around and see what's happening, 2 assassination attempts on a presidential candidate. It's a lot. And then you got the corporate media, and if you can't see, they're working together, and they'll always come together and say, well, we just can't find a motive. We're just not sure what the motive is and whatever. And they'll occasionally stick in the, we don't abide by political violence. That's complete nonsense. That's all they're doing is spinning it up. There are people overseas that we would see that were firing up the terrorists, and we would call them facilitators. You're facilitating a fight, and that's kind of what they're doing. The Secret Service, I'm just not understanding this. They said this dude who I mentioned earlier, Ryan Ruth, he found a bush outside of the golf course, and he's laying in the bush with a GoPro and a gun. I guess it was an SKS, so that's going to go against the narrative, because everything bad is AR-15 from people who have no idea what they're talking about. We should tell them that it's okay, because we'll just use AR-10s because they're 5 less dangerous, because they're AR-10s and not AR-15s. But yeah, he got in there, and that's close, man. And there's a bush there, and I don't want to go through how to set up a nice sniper hide, a nice veggie hide with a ghillie suit and whatnot, and offsetting stuff and using shadows and all that bullshit. This guy wasn't a sniper. This guy actually wasn't. He was a lot of things. I don't think he had military experience. But I mean, even for the most basic security guy, let alone I would think a Secret Service guy on a detail would think, oh, there's a bush. Let's go check it. Right? What happened to perimeters? I mean, that's basic day one shit. You're protecting the principle, set up the perimeter. I thought the guys at ECU at the game I was at when JD Vance showed up, they were good, man. They had everything covered. That was cool the way they did that. I met some of those guys, but the dudes on the golf course, now it's like, what's really going on here? How are these people getting so close to Donald Trump? Who's involved? Well, I'll tell you who's involved. Actually, Joe Biden is personally involved with Donald Trump's protection, which to me is odd because he's personally involved with key aspects, yet he still calls Donald Trump a threat. And CNN even just said that he still has it coming. Like that Trump's doing this all himself. I don't think it's Trump doing it all himself. I think it's the spin with the media. And if you listen to just the mainstream media, the ones that tell you, the ones that'll tell you it's like a conservative press, even though it's all leftist. A lot of people. I know a lot of people that still believe this stuff too. They still can't tell me why they hate Donald Trump so much. Obviously the newest one is he's a threat to democracy. He's a threat to our democracy. He's a threat to civilization. No, the people telling you that are the same people that know that if they tell you a lie over and over and over and over, which they do, and they've admitted it, you're going to listen to it. Then that's their thing. I mean, right now, I'm amazed at how many celebrities are raging for the machine. And you get this, and they a lot of these bigwigs and politicians, former politicians, are all the same ilk, the same deep state. They don't care about democracy. They don't even know what it is because we say all the time that we're a constitutional republic, which is not a democracy. Democracy would vote on every single issue. That's not how we work. If you feel like learning more about that, we can get into it. The reason they're so spun up about this stuff is because Donald Trump is one of the few guys that's going to come in, and this time he's going to uncover exactly what they've been doing, and you would be shocked. What's going? Why do you think so many Democrats are so pro-Ukraine, and defending to the point where now they're talking about getting long-range missiles to shoot into Moscow? That's a bad idea because Vladimir Putin potentially could respond to other countries other than Ukraine. What's going on in Ukraine is not great. I've never been there. I've seen some of the aftermath the same way you have on the internet, and it's horrific. But it's the same thing with the powers that be will send the minions out there to kill each other, and then they'll have all this. They can get on their soapbox and talk about the evils of everyone else. But what kind of illegal shit's been going on in Ukraine before Vladimir Putin invaded? And why are so many members of this government trying to defend it? And it's not because of a threat to democracy. We have NATO for that reason. He's not going to roll into Poland because we have NATO, and we have Poland, which is obviously a part of NATO. But for American politicians to be this involved in something like that, and even to the point, this clown Ryan Ruth, he was a big Ukraine guy. He went over there a bunch. He's got a funny story. But I mean, I'm reading some of this rhetoric right here. Don Lemon even said if Trump wants to be safe, he needs to just shut up. Just shut up or just censor him. Hear that? What's wrong with the debate? What's wrong with being able to say something and not be shouted down? Even though if you disagree with me, I'll probably call you an idiot. They're just the left is proving right now they're not afraid of Donald Trump going down. They're afraid of Donald Trump getting up. And he's, like I said, he's going to expose him. This Ryan Ruth dude, big Ukraine fanatic. He was over there a lot, and I don't believe he has any military experience, but he's doing some weird stuff too. And most of our government agencies knew about this dude. And there was a CIA operative that warned the state for several years, I think twice, about this guy that's meeting with people, fighters from Afghanistan and Pakistan and Yemen. He loved Iran for some reason. I guess he's dealing with dudes all over the Middle East. He's dealing in drones and weapons and humanitarian aid. And humanitarian aid is a funny way to say a very easy way to embezzle money. But he has no experience in any of it. And he's rolling around talking about how he wants to assassinate world leaders, and not just Donald Trump, but he's mentioning other people, same names. I think he's a convicted felon too, but you know what that means nowadays. And still, the agencies are aware of him. He's traveling around Ukraine, all over Europe. He's going to the United States. He's meeting with politicians from. Who is this dude? Running guns, running fighters into Ukraine for God knows what, because we don't have there's not a lot of coverage in Ukraine. Like meeting with politicians, defense officials all over Europe, and the media keeps saying, well, we can't find a motive on this guy. Well, he's a fanatic who's been brainwashed by the media about Ukraine. How hard is that? You get over there, you get a piece of so-called action. You're not a gangster. You want to pretend you are, and all of a sudden you get an SKS and you go try to shoot the president. Nobody saw this, and everyone's doing fantastic.